And now, the HBO original series, Vice.
Bad guys coming.
This week on Vice, we sent Thomas to Albuquerque to check out the new phase of school security.
Look at those teachers that lost their lives. What if they had a weapon? They could have protected more of those little kids.
And also, we're in the old battlefields of Iraq to see what the ongoing cost of war is when the shooting finally stops.
Clearly, children are suffering. People are sick. And if the weapons we use really did cause this health crisis, we need to know this.
ما نتحمل غير الأمريكان. وإذا كمنظمة إحنا نريد حل للأطفال.
Weapon systems used in modern warfare have horrific and enduring effects long after the fighting is stopped. In Vietnam, for example, widespread use of the chemical compound known as Agent Orange, which was used by the American military, created a generation of deformed Vietnamese children that suffer to this day because of its toxic legacy. And an even more recent example of the toxic after effects of war is developing on the former battlegrounds of Iraq. The cities that experienced the heaviest fighting are now suffering through a tremendous rise in congenital birth defects and rare cancers. And the city worst hit is Fallujah. Fallujah was the focal point for some of the fiercest fighting during the occupation. 36,000 of the city's 50,000 homes were destroyed, along with 60 schools and hundreds of mosques. It was some of the most intense urban warfare experienced by the Marines since the Vietnam War. We talked to First Private Ross Caputi, a former U.S. Marine who fought in the siege of Fallujah and was so affected by what he experienced there that he started Justice for Fallujah, an advocacy group designed to bring awareness to the after effects that are ravaging the region.
We had sort of a shoot first, ask questions later type policy. There was a new thermobaric weapon that we tested for the first time in Fallujah. It's called the SMA-NE. If you fire it into a house, and the first thing it'll do, it'll suck all the oxygen out of the house. And anyone in that house, their lungs will collapse. After that, there's an extreme heat blast that just fries anyone within the general vicinity of this weapon. To create this thermobaric blast, it's suspected that uranium might be used.
We tried to talk to the U.S. Department of Defense about this issue, but they refused our request for an interview and declined to provide us with a written statement about the use of uranium munitions in Fallujah. However, in documents obtained via the Freedom of Information Act by the International Coalition to Ban Uranium Weapons, the DoD claims they simply did not record the use of uranium munitions before July 2004. So without much information from the U.S. military, it's been left to independent scientists and researchers to figure out what effects these weapons have had.
When you drop these bombs in an environment, what happens is that once that explosion occurs, fine particles that contain metals get spread all over the environment. It'll enter the soil, it'll enter the water, it gets taken up by plants. People who are in an area that's being bombed, it gets right into their system, and then slowly it exposes them from inside. These damages can be much more severe in a child or in a fetus because they don't have the detoxifying mechanisms that an adult body normally has. As early as 2005, there were reports of birth defects in various cities of Iraq. There was a 50% increase in the families that we studied in Fallujah. That's a huge, enormous jump. My best guess is that the source would have to be from military. There is no other source that I can attribute metal contamination to in these levels.
So we traveled to Iraq to visit Fallujah General Hospital and meet the doctors who are dealing with these toxic effects every day. Fallujah General is the largest and most important hospital in the city, and has been struggling to keep pace with the rise in cancers and rare birth defects amongst the local population.
There's two outspoken doctors here who are talking about the birth defects and the health problems that have been caused by the war that happened here. So we're going to go in and talk to them so they have to tell us.
They've
Maybe you could explain what you see here day to day in the hospital.
على زيادة عدد الإصابات سواء في التشوهات الخلقية أو في الأمراض السرطانية لدى سكنة مدينة الفلوج. ونحن نعتقد بأن هناك تأثير مباشر هذه الحرب. هذا البحث أخذ نماذج من 25 طفل، أخذت نماذج من الشعب وأرسلت إلى مختبر في ألمانيا، فكانت النتيجة بأنه وجود مادة اليورانيوم والزئبق والبزموت.
If you have a problem of that magnitude, you have a whole generation that's being affected after the war is over. How do you solve it?
إذا كانت هناك هذه المسببات من قبل القوات الأمريكية، عوائل هؤلاء الضحايا أنا أعتقد يحتاجون إلى مد يد العون، لأنه كثير من العوائل يعني شراء الدواء.
According to a 2010 study conducted at Fallujah General, 1 in every 20 babies born in the hospital had some sort of birth defect. Now that's 12 times more than the rate in neighboring Kuwait. Most of the children here are being treated for a variety of rare conditions, ranging from underdeveloped brains to congenital heart defects.
So they have ESD?
ASD. He's dying.
Each one of these forms of congenital heart defects has its own problems for treatment, but the common thread is that they're either deadly or untreatable in Iraq.
You can't save
The baby. You can't save the baby, and this baby's dying.
Dying when he comes on the first day.
Yeah. And they have a lot of cases of these.
In 1 week we can collect 3, 4, sometimes 5, just in Fallujah General Hospital.
And behind every door, there seemed to be yet another heartbreaking story.
And so, what does this baby have?
This baby has a small BDA, latent ductus arteriosus. He's a handicap, but he's alive.
Right.
You can't fix it by surgery.
And can the baby survive surgery?
Maybe yes, maybe not.
Can you do it here?
Absolutely
No,
not.
no.
The family know that maybe dead.
And after seeing the suffering of all these children, our first question was, is America really responsible for this? So we talked to an award-winning journalist who's been covering the region for the last 30 years.
One of the major problems with dealing with a story of this kind, a report, an investigation, is that you can never ultimately prove 101% that it was a particular piece of munitions, American munitions, that caused birth defects, an explosion of cancers in the case of depleted uranium in other parts of Iraq. Because, you know, when a corpse is opened, you don't find a little label saying, you know, this chemical came from the United States. But you can prove that there is an X% possibility, perhaps 90%, that it obviously locks into munitions used by, for example, the Americans.
And when you talk to the families that are affected by this epidemic, they've actually evolved from who is to blame and are now asking, how do we fix this?
مشكلة مصطفى جاء قبل الموعد هذا وصار عنده تلف بخلايا الدماغ، نقص أكسجين.
So Mustafa has brain atrophy, and is it thought that it's caused because of the fighting, because of the war?
نعم، لأن ما كان عندنا قبل هيك حالات احنا. واثنين ثلاثة لحد الآن بدت هاي الحالات سببهم أو كانوا هم السبب الرئيسي أو يعني غير مباشر، بس احنا يعني نريد علاج. يعني إذا هم عندهم أطفال يقبلون أطفالهم يصيرون بهيك حالة.
Hello, how are you?
والله يعني بتاريخ 2008 يعني جانا مولود هذا الطفل عبد الله، فوديناه يعني بنفس اليوم الدكتور اطفال، فقال لنا هذا عنده فتحه ولاديه بظهره، يعني فتحه ولاديه بظهره، فقلت له شنو الحل؟ قال والله الحل انه لازم نسوي عمليه راسا، وطبعا امر العمليه يعني صار يعني ما ادري قدرا يعني او سووا تدبير المستشفى انه صار عنده شلل تام. ما نحمل غير الامريكان. والله انا ما بدي احكي بالسياسه، وذاك المنظمه احنا نريد حل للاطفال.
While the Department of Defense refused to comment on the situation, we were able to contact a senior congressman who has been publicly vocal on this subject and was willing to talk to us.
I'm very suspicious that depleted uranium is creating a health hazard for not only American soldiers who are exposed to it, but also to the Iraqi people. And my view is that people don't want to look, because if you find something, then you have to do something about it.
In 2005, the congressman introduced the Depleted Uranium Study Amendment, a law designed to force the government to investigate.
I got the amendment passed. It required that there be a report in a year. The report came out, it's 2 pages, and it says we couldn't find anything. I mean, that's that. I was frustrated by their conclusions. They didn't seriously go out and gather data before they wrote the report. I don't think they've done an adequate job. If you're looking for something, you've got to look where it is. The military is not very interested because they don't want to lose the weapon quality of depleted uranium, and to find out that it's bad for people is not something they want to discover. I take a different view. I think of it as the United States. When we affect something in the world, we have a responsibility for what we've done. I was a physician in the Vietnam War, and I watched the military resist, looking into Agent Orange. And so this is like deja vu all over again. I've seen this before, where the military doesn't want to admit that there is a problem. The long-term effects of war are the things that people never want to talk about. That's the really tough part.
And this problem is even tougher if A, we continue to refuse a comprehensive study of these health problems, and B, deny responsibility if indeed it's proven that we did cause them.
There's clearly a problem in Fallujah. Clearly children are suffering, people are sick. I mean, we owe it to these people to figure out what is afflicting them, and if the weapons we used really did cause this health crisis, we need to know this so that this never happens again.